not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as free men. Free men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
You gotta fight for your right.
Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in the Morning. My name is Mr. Henry. Sitting beside me over there, David Shine Thompson. We have a fantastic one for you today. I'm pretty sure it's May 14th on a Thursday. And man, there were some crazy, crazy national headlines going down last night. Before we get into that, though, let me ask my buddy over there, David Shine Thompson, how you doing this morning, man?
I'm feeling great, Mr. Henry.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really good. It's almost the weekend. We've been, you and I have been working really hard this week, but it's been a good week. It's been a good week for working hard. It's been a good week for being engaged in our community and being engaged in our government and all that stuff. So it's been a real news kind of week, and I've been enjoying it.
Greatest audience in the nation appreciation right here too. I want to say, man, I'm appreciative of my buddy Shine actually saying that he's been having a great week. Honestly, bro, there's a lot of headlines you could look at, and if you focus on for all too long, you start getting a little bit of despair creeping in, right? You get a little bit disheartened. You start thinking to yourself like, oh man, we got this FISA Court that just renewed as well. Like, I don't know, maybe there's an uptick here because we're starting to see some of the people that did some unmasking, but then I get a little bit more depressed sometimes, possibly because nothing's going to happen from it. And then all of a sudden you stumble backwards onto this headline that Greta Thunberg, she's an expert on this panel for coronavirus. What in the world is going on? You know what I'm saying, man? There's a lot of headlines that could take you up and down on these roller coaster roads that we're going on before we get to some of those headlines.
Yeah, but she's an expert in virtue signaling, which is very, very important right now. It's very, very important right now. Just ask CNN. They'll tell you. If you don't virtue signal correctly, you may not be able to do business. So if you want to learn how to virtue signal the best way, you need to watch Greta Thunberg or whatever. She's a walking manifestation of what it means to virtue signal. She's the virtue signal meme.
And let me say this,
How dare you, Grant?
How dare you, John? Let me say this. Some people are asking themselves right now, like, what in the world does Greta Thunberg know about the coronavirus? I don't know, dude. What did she know about climate change? Like, how is she qualified to be an expert on the coronavirus panel? I don't know. How is she qualified to be an expert for climate change, bro? What does that mean? I don't know what qualification she has for any of this stuff other than just qualifications to, I don't know, man, have rich parents that are well plugged in, that she can somehow get herself in front of the UN, that she's now a face for like movements or change, or I don't know. That's why when people were making the comparison, Sean, they said, why don't they just throw David Hogg in there as if they were somehow being facetious or slightly joking about the comparison? I was thinking, not a bad comparison. In a real sense, if the only true qualification Greta Thunberg has is to just bring some type of awareness to a cause, and that's it. That's just it. That is literally, plainly, purely it. No expertise, no actual knowledge, nothing that you can lend any sort of awareness to. Why not get a David Hogg out there, bro? If you're just looking after like how many Twitter followers the person has or how upset she can get at a room full of adults, David Hogg can do that for you as well as somebody else can. Seriously, man. Like, I don't mean to go too hard on this morning, but in all sincerity, am I wrong in that? But like when people are joking, why not throw David Hogg up there? It would be just as good. It's a reasonable comparison to throw it out there. I just don't know. I don't know what qualifies a Greta Thunberg for climate change or coronavirus any more than, say, David Hogg would qualify for something like that. Facebook, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Sean, you want to have any comments on that before we get to the other topic?
I'll just say this. Leave it to CNN to exploit a child for clicks. I just leave it to see. You know, you may bring up a great point, Mr. Henry. I think what they did was bring her in order to get news, in order to get clicks, in order to get views. And it's kind of sad that a multi-million-dollar corporation has to exploit a child in order to make money. But that's just me, especially one that says they're news, right? They say they're news. They're doing a town hall for information's sake, and they're having someone on just for the fact that it could benefit the stream. benefit the actual video itself, not by providing information, but by getting people to there and doing news. I mean, golly, we're even helping promote it right now, so it worked. So
that's true.
But that's the only use that she has, and her parents are doing it. People in government do it. Television stations do it, and it's sad that she won't realize probably how she's been used until she's an adult, because she trusts all these people, because you're supposed to be able to trust adults when you're a kid. And I'm not saying she doesn't believe it, but I'm saying she's obviously being exploited. And at some point, I'm sure she'll feel some resentment for that. So that's kind of sad that a multi-million-dollar corporation has to exploit a child for views and clicks.
Well, maybe you did just sort of enlighten everyone to like the brilliance behind what CNN's strategy is here. And go with me for a minute. This is a slight devil's advocate argument, but in some sense, it's very, very real. Shine just said a second ago that, like, I don't know, man, we're all sitting here talking about it right now because of almost the tragedy behind how absurd this is. Right? I mean, seriously, we're sitting here talking about it. Listen to the first paragraph or two of this Washington Examiner article that's talking about it. The brave, hard-hitting journalists over at CNN are hosting a town hall Thursday evening called Coronavirus, Facts and Fears. Our First Amendment warriors are only bringing viewers the best of experts, such as former CDC Director Richard Besser, former HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg. You literally cannot make this stuff up, Washington Examiner says. This would be a masterful parody. It could have been one of the Babylon Bee's finest works, yet no. This is actually the reality of CNN in 2020. All right, yeah, cool. I get it. I get your pitch, right? It's funny. It's a parody account. It might as well have been Babylon Bee. But Sean, I think, hit it on the head right there. That's fine. But we're all sitting here talking about it, and I guarantee you a large number of people are going to tune into that, if for nothing more than just confirmation bias alone, just to prove how absurd it was, or could be, or should have been, or whatever, or will be. A large number of people that will tune in that would not have watched that otherwise, simply to see Greta Thunberg on there, to say to their friends, I told you so, dude, because you see how ridiculous that was. Some of the stats I used to look up, Shine, said that as much as 38% of Rush Limbaugh's listening audience is listening to him because they dislike him. They listen to him for confirmation bias. They listen to him to slip up on facts, or to prove how moronic and idiotic he is every single day. Some of the brilliance behind this strategy could be gin up a bunch of nonsense about this Greta Thunberg. Everybody will talk about it in the run up to it. Everybody will tune into it. And even if they're not wanting to, they will inadvertently be exposed to some of this information. Game over. We win. I don't know, man. It's just me thinking off the top of my head. Probably not what's going on. Maybe I'm getting CNN way too much credit.
No, I think the fact that we're all pretty predictable in our reactions makes it easy to do this multi-level culture war marketing now. Because they're not going to tune in because they love Greta Thunberg, right? Thunberg. Maybe. They might. Some will. But let me tell you what's going to happen, because it's already happening. CNN puts out the news. All these right-leaning outlets start making fun of Greta Thunberg and CNN for doing this. People end up tuning in to CNN and Greta Thunberg just to show the right-leaning people, to show them, because they're not going to let this icon of theirs be mocked in public, which is Greta Thunberg. So they're going to go and support their icon. That's the way they're getting views out of this. Not because people are actually interested in Greta Thunberg, but they're interested in sticking it to their opposition, who's making fun of Greta Thunberg. Does that make sense? So you release it, you have the predictable action of right-leaning news sources making fun of her and CNN. Then you have the predictable reaction of whatever the right-leaning people say, all the people on the left do the opposite, right? They don't even think about it. They just do the opposite. And the opposite of making fun of her would be talking about how great she is and how they're going to watch the CNN town hall. And they're good people because they do that and whatever. And you're bad people because you do what you do. That's the marketing these days. Enjoy, everybody. But this predictable behavior by the culture war left and right creates these kind of situations. I try not to be predictable. But yeah, hopefully that, I doubt 500,000 people are going to watch, but maybe 3 million people are going to watch, but it's going to be in that range.
Hey, and let me say too, we kind of skipped over the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment there. In that vein, if you're struggling with something, if you need help with something, if you just want to praise or encouragement for something, if you want to let us know, like, hey, some business that's innovating, throw that in the comment section. Message myself or David over there, personally here on Facebook, or message the Real News, inbox there. We'll get back to you there also. But in that vein, Kelly just said a second ago, I like how she uses the term ragey here. I'm all ragey again this morning. I seriously need y'all to pray for my heart. I'm so angry and frustrated. So seriously, man, y'all throw some prayers Kelly's way here. She says she's angry and ragey over these contact tracers and the hiring of people who were supervise and care for our children in detention facilities for COVID-19 exposure. Not only test positive, but simply exposed. This is real. Sorry, these governors are telling us we're coming to take you away. Help Kelly calm down, Sam. And I can tell you, I understand where Kelly's coming from. All right. I mean, I've been seeing some of these things coming up recently about, in a completely different vein, that I'm getting stuff all ragey about. Another story that's linked in the show notes this morning that you'll see up there. We now have a list of officials that's been officially released of those that did the unmasking. Let me break down again real quick why this unmasking thing is such a big deal. For those that don't understand, FISA Court, all right, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. If you want to spy on a foreign individual, let's call it some Russian operative, a Russian oligarch, maybe he's a Russian parliament member. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Or an Afghanistan terrorist, which is what it was made for,
better point,
actually.
Right, it's what it was made for. Let's say you're spying somebody else in the United States, and they're having conversations with a person in the United States. You don't have to worry about that pesky Fourth Amendment thing. You just go to this FISA court and say, hey, I'd like to look at what that guy's doing. Emails, phone calls, text message exchange, web browser history, all that stuff. And if they so happen to be talking to an American citizen, we'll just incidentally collect information on that person too. Now, that American citizen, his name is meant to be redacted. His or her name is meant to be redacted through the entirety of all of it. Any papers that are released, any information that's exchanged between intelligence organizations, any of this stuff. You're not supposed to be able to see the name of the American citizen, i.e., so says the Fourth Amendment or American law, or I don't know, man, God himself. Doesn't matter. You're not supposed to be able to see that stuff because you haven't gotten a warrant to get that stuff out yet, right? Well, what ended up happening in 2016, there was a bunch of people in the Obama administration that did want to see the name of who was talking to these Russians, that did want to see the name of which Americans were doing what and for what particular reasons. One of them was the name of Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was the income security advisor, and, he was a guy that was supposed to be having those conversations. That was literally his job description. On the way into the White House, you were supposed to be setting up those relations. Every major person had done it before him. It is the actual job qualifications that he had. So now we finally have a list of individuals that have asked for this unmasking. And the thing about unmasking those names is shortly after that name was unmasked, it was released to the public. And shortly after it was released to the public, it essentially sort of forced the hand of Donald Trump, creating this entire scheme and scenario by which we now have the Russiagate theory or the Russian hoax theory or Russia influencing our election or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But Flynn was the name that was attached to all that. And Flynn was the name that was leaked to the media. And now it's starting to look like a lot of these Obama administration officials may have had something to do with this. And even furthermore, it's starting to look like these Obama administration officials, from the list that you're looking at right now on your screen, that some of these individuals may have actually, there might be something to this narrative that perhaps our intelligence agencies were weaponized to influence the 2016 election. Take it for yourself. I don't know, man. I don't know. These are the names of some of these individuals that asked to unmask Michael Flynn's name. And when they did so, it was another reason they could justify a continued probe on into 2017 to look into President Trump's campaign and then all the way into his presidency. That's what gave us Robert Mueller. That's what gave us 2.5 years of an investigation. Eventually, subsequent Ukraine stuff coupled with that is what gave us now an impeached president. Donald Trump. We all kind of forget that, but yes, it happened. Acquitted in the Senate, of course. Here's what you're looking at right now says. These requests were processed between November 2016 and January 2017. These are individuals that are generically referred to in an NSA foreign intelligence report. Each individual was an authorized recipient of the original report, and the unmasking was approved to the NSA's standard process, which includes a review of the justification of the request. Only certain personnel are authorized to submit this unmasking request into the NSA system and database. In this case, 16 individuals were authorized and requested unmasking for different NSA intelligence reports for select individuals. What do you see right here? James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. Go a little bit more. You see John Brennan, CIA. So now we got DNI and we got CIA on here. I don't know what they're doing. We have
It's
a whole
basically an
bunch of folks from the Treasury.
MSNBC panel. Like an MSNBC panel is sitting around getting warrants for their political enemies. How weird is that? You know,
Right.
It's very odd.
We have a whole bunch of folks in the Treasury. Go over one page more. A couple more folks in the Treasury.
Why the
There
Treasury?
we go. There's the FBI.
That's so
That's
weird.
another one, right?
James Comey.
James Comey, boy.
Yeah.
Our boy Comey coming back through. So now we have the DNI, we have the CIA, and we have the FBI that are all somehow, for some particular reason, very, very worried about what this guy Michael Flynn is having a conversation about with particular people. Finally, this is possibly one of my favorite ones here. Down at the very bottom here, old VP at the time, Joseph R. Biden. Now presidential candidate Joe Biden. And I'm not exactly sure, Shime, how he's going to make up for this one. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to say. What was the reason why? Let me put it this way, buddy. Okay,
I know what he's going to say. I know what he's going to say.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
He's going to say, huh? What? What? I don't.
What'd you say? Who?
I don't remember that.
Ask Barack. I don't know. Anyways, I don't
Hey,
mean
Michelle,
to sound too
would you be my running mate?
That's right. Ask Michelle. She's the one that really knew what was going on. I don't mean to sound too disparaging here, man, but let's be real. The vice president of the United States doesn't do all that much. He really doesn't do all that much. Like, he breaks a vote in the Senate, and I guess he's just there as a contingency plan. That's basically what he does. That's essentially what the VP does. Outside of that, I'm not sure what power you all think the VP has, but it certainly shouldn't be enough power where, like, Joe Biden needs to be the one that's in the know for this information. Bro, Joe, why would you need to know what Flynn is doing, buddy? I mean, I can understand why Barack would need to. What do you say, Mr. Henry? I don't know, man. Maybe Barack wanted to keep his name off this account, this report. I don't know. President Obama. Let me be formal and correct here, okay?
Yeah, Mr. Henry, show some respect for the guy unmasking people. Do that.
Daniel just said in Facebook, he's going to walk off the camera again. Exactly.
Hey, and you know, like, this is a serious topic. The only reason we're laughing is I say this all the time. You either laugh or you cry, because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
President of the United States unmasking a political enemy. And now we have enough evidence, at least from the FBI, that they weren't just trying to investigate him for the reasons that they said they were trying to investigate him.
Right.
They were trying to get him fired, too. So it was obviously political or a policy difference or something, but definitely, what would you call it? An incorrect or an abuse of power. That's what you call it. You call it an abuse of power. That's what that was. They had a policy difference, or they didn't like each other because of party differences, whatever. But that's not how you use the people's stuff. You don't use it to fight over policy.
And think about what they were trying to bring Flynn down for, man. It was procedure claims. It was for lying to the FBI. It wasn't like substantive issues of bringing the national security interest of the country into concern. It was none of that stuff, bro. Like, what this is starting to look like, I'll break it down pure and simple for you. What this is starting to look like is that this was the linchpin the intelligence agencies could use to make this a behind-the-scenes effort into a forefront effort, to make this into something that people only whispered about, to now it's something that the New York Times is reporting about. You get what I'm saying? You see the difference there? Mm-hmm. This was the arm that they were able to use to bring this from the clandestine into the public, from the shadows out into the light. I don't know what other analogies I can use. They're basically making it so, like, hey, media, go run with this story now and gin up this entire thing about the Russia conspiracy charge, because we actually got some look, we have some charges back here. We got some indictments coming. This guy just lied to the FBI. He's having conversations with Russians. Who is? Well, I'll tell you who. Just let me unmask type thing, right? That's what it's starting to look like. And maybe I'm off my rocker here. I don't know. I'm totally willing to admit that. But I look, man, Sean and I covered this stuff intensely, deeply for years, man. Years. And back to what Kelly said a second ago on Facebook, and I'll kick it to you, Sean, for some follow-up. If you want, back to what Kelly said on Facebook. That's why some of this is starting to frustrate me. Because we were so emotionally invested into this particular story, not just the unmasking, but everything else that surrounded this, the weaponizing of the intelligence. If you think it's bad if you might think that Russia influenced the election, how much worse would it be if I told you that the American media had way more influence in this than you actually, than Russia would ever even hope to have? any other foreign influence that you could possibly think of. Couple that with weaponizing our intelligence agencies, with the DOJ giving handwritten questions to particular candidates over others, with the DOJ giving talking points down to media to call an investigation a matter, not an investigation. The DOJ was directing media to call the Hillary Clinton investigation a matter, not an investigation. James Comey's own words, under testimony. All this stuff was happening, and the unmasking is what started all this stuff. So yeah, Kelly, I share your frustration. Shine, man, I don't know if you want to give any follow-up, if you want to hit some Facebook comments, man, or if we want to give a little bit more. There's one more story I did want to cover.
Look at the comments real quick, and I'll give my my follow-up on that. We know the media affects elections. We know that. The big story here, and they're kind of supposed to, I guess, in their own way, like they're supposed to try to do that. It's up to us, the customer, to not reward them when they lie. It's a market thing with the news. But the news, what's big news here is the news getting help from the government. And the using their combined biases to work together to produce things that ended up ultimately being untrue. And I'll say the same thing. It's the same analysis that I gave about that judge in Texas who shut down the salon owner. Same analysis, because this is a principle in government. And I don't care if you're a dictator or the leader of a little democracy that's only the size of Knoxville, Tennessee. It doesn't matter. Or a republic or whatever. It doesn't matter. When you abuse your power, you lose power by default. By default. Either in the short term or the long term. Because either, and this, I don't know, if everybody remembers the judge, you shut down the Texas salon owner, and then Greg Abbott came out and did the executive order and freed her and then changed the executive order. It really hurt the power of judges in Texas. So what this will ultimately end up doing is decreasing the power of the FBI. It'll ultimately end up decreasing the power of the news complex, especially the part of it that was getting its information from government in order to survive, in order to get clicks. And that's just the way it works. And I don't know how long that'll take. It may take a long time. Some of you may not see it. But that is a principle in life. And when people ignore those principles, they pay for it. I mean, just look at dictators who've been hung in the streets and kings over time who've been ripped to shreds because of a mob uprising and things like that. Or even just look at Greg Abbott dressing down a circuit court judge and the Supreme Court having to follow suit because they were behind the curve. That's the way things work. Okay.
You hit that one on the head. Like a week before it happened, you hit that one.
A week before it happened. And we never really did a good follow-up on that. Like that woman's career is basically ruined. She got reprimanded by the Supreme Court, overturned by the Supreme Court, and all the judges in Texas now have less power because they were the what's that wag the dog analogy? Where they had to follow the lead of the executive. And this is the case. This is what's happening right now. It's probably what Bill Barr is trying to stop from happening or mitigate as much as possible when he's doing things and then following up those things by saying, I just want to increase the better feelings towards the FBI and the Justice Department because I'm trying to, that's part of holding up the rule of law in the United States. Bill Barr sees the danger. He gets it. When you do things like this, you don't actually hurt your political opponents. I mean, maybe in the short term you do. But in the long term, what you're doing is destroying an institution that serves and helps people. That's a good institution. The United States Justice Department is not an innately negative institution. But it could be destroyed by things like this. And that's the main reason you don't do them. That's the main reason you don't violate things. It's not because it's against the law and you can go to jail. It's because you can destroy the institution. You're not, I mean, that's James Comey's biggest problem. And it's been a critique many have leveled at him, is he thought he was bigger than the FBI. He thought he was bigger than the Justice Department. And he even said that in his own words, saying, I felt like I needed to do this to save America. That's James Comey.
He's the only one that could save us, though. He's the only one.
So that's my analysis, is that this will, to make you feel better, Kel. This is in all response to Kel's comment of this is part of my frustration. Know that the world works a certain way, and evildoers do not prosper in the long term. That's some good things to keep in mind. Help you have peace.
Well, and you're talking about look, destroying institutions, destroying the faith in some of these institutions. That's a good segue into the story I wanted to end with today. Here is that headline you see in the link in the show notes here. One of them is coming from Gizmodo, the other one is coming from Politico. Sort of juxtaposing these two headlines here, because we all remember the FISA court I was just talking about, the unmasking stuff. I mean, the court that allows this type of surveillance to go on. Apparently, that court has not even been authorized since March 11th. So, right. So what is this today? The 14th. So for a little over a month, that court has just been not operating under authorization. Like, it just has ceased to exist, I suppose. You have to reauthorize that every so number of days or months or years or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. So they voted yesterday on a few amendments proposed to do, for this reauthorization. And a few of them, some of them, one of them was a win. Most of them was a major loss. The Gizmodo headline here is, here's who just voted to let the FBI seize your online history without a warrant. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Now, here's the interesting thing. That's always been happening.
That's always been a thing.
That has always been, it's always been a thing.
And just a side note, I thought Gizmodo went out of business. Like in November of last year. I thought all of them did. All right, cool. That's cool. Gizmodo's still in business. Oh, okay.
That's it.
They must have got bought for pennies on the dollar, and someone's getting paid $5 an hour to write these articles. Just so y'all know.
No, I know, because it makes it seem like this thing was just just written into law yesterday. No, it's always been that way. They just reauthorized it to continue being that way.
That's what I was saying, Grant. Is like they almost went out of business. They had to fire all their California writers. They can't make any money. This person writing the article is probably stupid. You're probably way smarter than the person writing the article. Just so you know.
This is what now. To be fair, there was an amendment, I suppose, that was offered, but whatever. Here's the first paragraph or two of the headline: a bipartisan amendment that would have prohibited law enforcement agencies such as the FBI from obtaining the web browsing and internet search histories of Americans without a warrant failed to pass the U.S. Senate on Wednesday by a single vote. By one vote. It failed to pass by a single vote. My man Bernie didn't even show up to this thing, so I'm going to blame it on him. Not really. Anyways, this is what happens. 27 Republicans, yes, that's right, 27 Republicans and 10 Democrats voted against the amendment. Let me put that in a positive spin. Not good spin, but a positive spin. Anyways, 27 Republicans and 10 Democrats voted to continue to allow this practice to happen. That's what they should have said. They voted against the amendment. All right. The amendment offered by two different senators, one Democrat and one Republican. You already had bipartisan support for this thing, right? It would have forced the government to get a warrant before obtaining internet search histories of Americans. Under Section 215 of the Act, the government can compel phone companies and internet service providers to turn over such data if it is deemed vaguely, quote, relevant to a terrorism or counter-espionage case. I don't even know what that means. Relevant to counterterrorism or counter-espionage? Dude, that could be everything or anything. In a lot of cases,
if you're a judge and you're getting someone suing over being unmasked or their Facebook stuff, wouldn't you just hate the legislature with that language? That's not a test.
I know, right?
That's not,
right.
This is how you know people in legislatures don't, or even these lobbyists and stuff, they don't know anything about the legal system. Because when someone sues, the judge is going to be like, relevant? Are you serious? Are you going to really make me write the law and say this is what the test is? Why didn't you write something that's a little more objective, lawmakers? Golly, because it's going to be challenged, right? And the judge is going to go.
It's like that perpetual scapegoat. The judge just let the judge figure out what's relevant. The judge is like, are you kidding me? It's like you're getting passed back and forth between customer service lines or something. Anyways, last thing I'll say, and then I got to hop off here. I'll let Sean in the show for us. They went on to say, the people that sponsored this bill, saying the typical American may think to themselves, I've got nothing to worry about. I've done nothing wrong. The government has no reason to suspect me of anything. Why should I worry? This is one of the senators that sponsored the bill, but he went on to say, unfortunately, the question is not whether you did anything wrong. The question is whether a government agent believes they have the right to look at your web searches. That, I think, is a nutshell, man. Let me leave in a positive note, though. Okay, so now that one failed. Senator Rand Paul's bill amendment, I'm fairly certain, did pass with a 77-19 vote. And that one basically says if you're going to do everything else other than internet searches, you do have to get a warrant for that, all right, on American citizens. So that's good. It's basically just like, so the Fourth Amendment means something again, kind of, sort of.
This is a great time to say if you don't have a VPN, you should probably get a VPN. They're really cheap. They're really cheap. You should get one. Hey, Mr. Henry, thanks for always doing such a great job, and we will see you tomorrow. Today's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., buddy.
All right, bye, y'all.
All right, there he goes, everybody. Mr. Henry, and we really appreciate him, always doing such a great job. He's responsible for the show description, and I always encourage you, especially you hardcore folks who want to stay up to date. It's like a little mini Drudge Report or something like that. So click on that Evernote link in the description, and you get all of Grant's prep. It's what I use for the show. Maybe it's what you should use too. Maybe we're thinking about turning it into a newsletter. That would be a lot of fun. And since we're at a kind of a pause here, I want to do a little commercial while we have time. Only about 30 seconds, and then we're going to get to some news here. I'll do a little tease. Big police presence expected at Michigan protest of stay-at-home order coming from Reuters. But before we get to that, tell your legislator to go to rejectbailouts.com and tell your legislators to reject bailouts. Here, I'm trying to put this. There we go. On our screen here. You can see it. If you go to rejectbailouts.com, you can tell your legislators to reject these reckless bailouts of states. I'll just read this real quick. Massive federal bailouts do more harm than good. They're not the right way to help those being hurt by the economic harm of this pandemic. American taxpayers should not be on the hook for these reckless states like Illinois, New York, or California. Politicians want to use bailouts as a way to cover up their own poor legislating. Legislating by crisis leads to poor decisions and poor outcomes. I'm asking you not to pass another multi-trillion, that's with a T, folks, trillion-dollar bailout. Federal bailouts are not the answer, and I urge you to take action to oppose them. That even though I'm urging you, the American people, to take action, this is a letter that you could have signed, sent to your legislator. And they're voting on it in the next 48 hours is what I'm hearing. So if you want to get your voice heard, if you don't want to bail out Illinois, New York, California, or even places like Kentucky who haven't gotten their proverbial stuff together when it comes to, what do they call those things? The state retirement plans. You know what I'm talking about. Pensions. There we go. But it's really easy. You put your first name, last name, and you put your location information here so it goes to the right senator and House member. So, and no one's going to bug you or sell this to third parties. This is just to get your voice heard. So go to rejectbailouts.com. Let's see here. I'm going to move this over to this screen. There we go. Big police presence expected at Michigan protest of stay-at-home order. Now, I know Kel was talking a little bit about things going on. This is some state news here. But a demonstration protesting the Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's stay-at-home order is set to take place on Thursday at the state capital of Lansing, with fears that some carry weapons inside the Capitol building. Whitmer recently extended the state's stay-at-home order, one of the strictest in the United States, until May 28th to prevent the spread of coronavirus and respiratory disease it causes. The protest organizer, and it talks a little bit about this, but there is an update in this story. I was hoping I could find it in here, where the Supreme Court overrode Whitmer's decision. And if you haven't been following this story, the state legislature told the governor that she couldn't continue the lockdown in Michigan. And she said, I'm going to continue the lockdown. Then the state Supreme Court said, well, you have to do what the legislator said. And very, very interesting stuff. It's stuff you're going to want to follow. And I don't know why Reuters would jump in on this, basically saying all the people who are protesting who really won. They've won the day. The people who did all the protest in Michigan, they've won the day because the Supreme Court is on their side and the legislators on their side. But something to follow there. And I think encouraging news of letting authoritarians know that they're not kings and they're not, these governors, letting them know that they can't just make law without the people or without the other branches of government. But just some headlines before we get out of here. Big police presence expected at the Michigan protest. Resentment builds as reopening rules apply to some businesses and not others. Pressure cooker in Pennsylvania as Pennsylvania governor aims to contain Republican revolt. And I think you're going to see things like this in these purple states, these, what do they call them, battleground states. I think you're going to see things like that. It's really sad that it's coming down, and I hate to sound like, all the Hollywood people and politicians, but it is sad that it's coming down to a partisan thing, because it's like people disengage intellectually when it becomes a partisan thing. Does that make sense? All of a sudden, people don't have to deal with facts. They don't have to deal with arguments. They're just, you're like that stupid guy Trump, or you're like that stupid lady Nancy Pelosi. instead of what is best for our states. But I'll keep going here. Jobless claims total 36.5 million. That's unbelievable. I've heard that the total number of people not in the workforce right now is up in the 100 million range. But these are people who had jobs that do not have them. Jobless claims. So people trying to get unemployment. Lots of people aren't even trying. And that's what's really upsetting. People have decided that they can't even get in there, into the job market. Fed, we need more bailouts. Accusations of socialism have lost bite. I totally disagree. It hasn't lost bite with me. You really see what they're doing here with this. I apologize. I haven't screened this article, but this is coming from San Francisco Gate. Obviously a San Francisco publication. They're going to lean a certain way, but accusations of socialism have lost their bite. I haven't looked at this, but let's go down here and check this out. Recently, Joe Biden declared any future stimulus would need to be a hell of a lot bigger than the $2 trillion CARES Act. He isn't alone. On Tuesday, House Democrats proposed a coronavirus rescue bill that would appropriate more than $3 trillion for health agencies, state and local governments, an extension of unemployment benefits, and a second round of stimulus checks to Americans, among other components. Other prominent Democrats are pushing even more, likely more than the $2,000 payments. Okay, so I guess I see where they're coming from here. For a while, Joe Biden was kind of using I'm not a socialist, so you don't be scared of me. They're saying Democrats, mainstream Democrats aren't scared of socialism. And I'll say this, if that's the case, you should worry. Because during a crisis time, anything can happen. And if you have this faction, the mainstream Democrats, the moderate wing of what would you even call it? The elite wing of the Democratic Party, the non-Bernie, non-progressive wing, the non-AOC wing. If they're down for socialism, then you better start paying attention. And it just kind of works out. That was an article about this recent legislation. If you want to get your voice heard, I'll do another shameless plug of rejectbailouts.com. Well, that's going to be it today. I got to go ahead and get working at my job. Mr. Henry's already gone to a meeting. I got to get to a meeting myself. But thank you all so much for joining us today here on Real News. As I said yesterday, always enjoy doing these shows with you. I always enjoy the chat and everything. And I really appreciate all of you. Make sure you check in daily with Real News. We keep the content coming every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. This has been David Shine Thompson on Real News.